hello and welcome to the seventh episode of Random Musings. If you're watching it on YouTube, great. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, hello to you guys as well. My guest today is not just one of India's best known stand up comedians, he is also the creator of a wonderful web series called Afsos and inarguably one of the best stand up specials that you can watch on Amazon Prime Video. Take it easy. It's my delight, it's my honor to call Anirban Dasgupta to Random Musings. Hi, Anirban.
Hi, KV.
Hi. Welcome to Random Musings, Anirban. I've been looking forward to this episode since the time I thought of this idea, so I'm very, very excited.
I'm very happy to be on the show because I love all the episodes.
Thank you. Okay, let's straight head into our conversation. And one of the topics that I've discussed in the episodes earlier is about the impact of where a person grows up. Okay, and we've discussed about Chhattisgarh with Vishwas. I discussed about Mumbai with Sumera and other guests as well. This is the first time on this series that I have someone from Calcutta, and I have my own like personal bias towards Calcutta. It's one of my favorite cities all over the world. I have actually planned trips to Calcutta for no reason. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you have a show somewhere, so you spend an extra day. Calcutta is the only city I plan without any plans as such. I just want to be there for a few days. Every time I take a walk around Eden Gardens or Victoria Memorial, that entire area, I take a photo and I send it to you because I know you'll be in Mumbai, you'll see the photo, you'll feel nostalgic. And you are not just from Calcutta, but you have a strong fascination to this particular part of Calcutta, which people call Calcutta Maidan. And obviously, you will talk much better about it. But all I remember is just walking around and looking at the Eden Gardens and looking at that small board that says East Bengal, that small gate that says Mohan Bagan. I remember when I had to launch Cricket and Football Edition for public, I literally took a photo outside Eden Gardens and Mohan Bagan because I was like, there can't be a better place in India to represent our love for cricket and football. So I want today's conversation to start with this amazing a few square kilometer area of Calcutta Maidan. Anirban, you grew up there. What do you feel about the place? Any memories? Anything that you want to talk about?
Calcutta Maidan is my favorite place in the whole world. I have been lucky to actually, I've literally grown up in the Maidan. Like, I know so many people from Calcutta, people I went to school with, people living in different parts of Calcutta who don't get the chance or the opportunity to, go to the Maidan every day. Whereas, I lived in the Maidan, okay, from about 7 years of age, 7 years of age, till I was 16, 17, till I moved out for college. That place used to be the most often visited place, in my life. And whenever now somebody comes to Calcutta, and if I happen to be in Calcutta, and they say ki thoda Calcutta ghuma, I just take them there. Okay, and it's like, it's not a conventional place you just take. Victoria Memorial is fine, but I'm like, Victoria Memorial last में देखेंगे, पहले मैदान घूमते हैं. So I just get them in a car and I'm like a guided tour. Okay, कि इधर Rangers का club है, इधर Aryans का club है. The thing about Maidan is it's so multi-dimensional. You know, you could just walk into Mohammedan Sporting Ground, the ground of Mohammedan Sporting, a historical. You could just walk in because guards लोग सो रहे हैं या कुछ, like, it's just खाली है. And then you come out and you walk like across Red Road, which is Calcutta's Rajpath. And then on the other end of Red Road, Devang Gandhi is batting while he's a test cricketer. So he's just batting like for his club, Kalighat के लिए खेलता था, and उसका भी tent उधर ही है. It's just beautiful. Not just cricket. Mohan Bagan, East Bengal Mountains, all the three grounds are there. Eden Gardens is obviously, I consider, the jewel of the Maidan. Okay, like that seals the deal for that part of the city. And these are establishments, but the great part about Maidan is it belongs to everyone. Like, everybody can just go there and play. Like, it's such a big, that photo that is there of New York, the aerial shot of New York where you see the concrete jungle, the Manhattan, and then Central Park. That's the kind of feeling Calcutta Maidan gives me, because literally it's in the heart of the city. One side is the Ganga, and then there's this huge, just open space, just greenery after greenery, probably 100 grounds is there. Like people are playing cricket, football, hockey. कोई picnic बना रहा है, कोई वो घोड़ा चढ़ने आया है, ठीक है, like सब कुछ हो रहा है. And then the city starts. Then Park Street, Theatre Road, everything starts. So yeah, I've just grown up there. My day used to start at the Maidan. I used to go at 7 o'clock to my club to play cricket, and that was when like the city is just like getting up. But the Maidan, people are like already in full flow, warm up kar rahe, koi bhag raha. Even uncles come and do yoga over there. It's just a beautiful place.
I mean, I have like 0.5% memory of Maidan, what you might have, Anirban. And you talked about playing cricket, and I for a fact know that you have played cricket since you were a kid. Okay, I know that you played in the same ground where Saurav Ganguly used to play, etc. But so why not talk about your love for cricket? We'll come to love for cricket because we'll talk about your love for cricket and football, etc. But you actually played club cricket. You, if I'm not wrong, you were a part of Bengal under 14, etc. Take me through that, Anirban. I'm very, very curious to know about, because I barely know anyone who has actually played professional cricket. So let's talk about those days, Anirban.
I played club cricket for nearly a decade. Like under 11s, under 14s, under 16s, under 19s, and I was always I was a good player, and for that level, I was a good player. I was like the main batsman. Then a few years later, I became a bowler. So it all started with Saurav Ganguly's debut at Lords. Okay, that '96, just made everybody wanna play cricket, and in Calcutta, there's a very strong club circuit, the sub junior and junior. It's probably because of the Maidan, because like most of the clubs are there only, including my club. And in '96, when Ganguly scored century and debut, and like we were just fascinated by this whole event. We all wanted to play cricket. I told my dad, okay, I want to play cricket, and he took me to Arun Lal's coaching academy, Bonvita Cricket Academy, and they wanted a trial. Okay, I was about like 7, 8 years old, and they wanted a trial. And my dad is like, that's the exact reason I've got him here, so that he can learn how to play cricket. Okay, so what is the point of a trial? But obviously, Bonvita, they were like the elite club, in the Maidan. Like they used to win all the tournaments, they had money. So eventually, my dad took me to BNR. So that BNR is Bengal Nagpur Railways. So I joined Railways, and I played there for 10 years. And very quickly I made it into their main team. So when I was 9 years old, I was the under 11 captain. Okay, and yeah, it's like we were kids. Okay, we really did not know anything. We were just having fun, and we used to go all across Bengal to just play matches. Like my dad, when he was not sailing, when he was in Calcutta, he used to like Maruti 800 में ऐसे 10 जन को लेके जाते थे. तो entire team used to fit there. So we were that small. डिक्की खोल के पीछे 4 जन, फिर बीच में 4-5 जन, इधर साइड में 2 जन किट विट के साथ. We used to go and play in Howrah, Hooghly, Durgapur, like all across Bengal. We used to go and play, and I reached a decent level for that level, and other clubs used to like ask me to come play a tournament with them. So I was one of the few guys who had the opportunity to do that, and then after a few years, so Bengal teams were selected via performance in the CAB tournament. So all clubs had like their own tournament. Howrah में कोई tournament हो रहा है, Hooghly में कोई tournament हो रहा है. But CAB का जो main tournament होता था, if you perform well, selectors are watching, they will call you for a trial. And in the year that I got selected in Bengal under 14, I was in the probables. I did not make it to the final 16. I was in the top 36. So that year, luckily all the matches of that CAB tournament happened inside Eden Gardens. जैसे यहाँ पे भी होता है ना बॉम्बे में कि 3-4 मैचेस एक साथ चल रहे हैं शिवाजी पार्क में, तो ईडन गार्डन्स, which is like it's not ओवल मैदान, it's not शिवाजी पार्क, it's a stadium, but उधर भी ऐसे 3 ग्राउंड्स में डिवाइड करके अंडर 14 का मैचेस हो रहा था. And in one match I scored like 61 not out. Name came in the papers and all, and I got a call from CAB. I went to the trials. So I got selected as a batsman. I batted well in the trials. I got drafted in the top 36, and this top 36 would practice for the next 8 months at Eden Gardens.
Wow.
Okay, so like Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays were the 3 days allocated for practice, and there used to be matches here and there on other days. So Saturday, Sunday, I used to go and practice at Eden Gardens, and Wednesday, school ke beach mein at like 10:30 was our break, and Wednesday practice at Eden Gardens started at 1 in the afternoon. So like a boss, I used to just walk out of school, okay, at our break time, and all my friends used to be like, "What the hell, man? This guy is going to go to Eden Gardens." I really enjoyed it. And I got selected as a batsman, but I came out as a bowler. So that's what Eden Gardens did to me. At that point, everything was set up for Test cricket, and I was one of those batsmen who, if the ball is outside the off stump, I won't let it alone. I won't leave it. I'll play a shot. Okay, I'll do something, and that was like looked down upon. Or like I used to play club cricket. Udhar, matlab, the stakes are so low. Like कहीं हुगली का कोई कोने में जाके एक match हो रहा है. But at Eden Gardens, like the coaches and all, they are like setting you up for Test cricket. So they really did not like my batting, and they just stopped giving me batting. And they were like, "Why don't you bowl?" And thankfully, that worked out for the next few years. I became a bowler.
Wow. Then why did you quit, Anirban? Like, what was the point where cricket ended and then other things started?
So I got dropped from Bengal after those 8 months, and that was a big blow. Although I did not deserve to make it, but at that point I was just sad. Like I was hoping against hope. Like I remember I went to Eden Gardens to check out the list, and I knew that there is no chance in hell that I'm going to make it to the top 16, and I did not make it. So I was like, okay, fine. I came back to the club circuit. I had a great season. The next season was like I had. I was then an all-rounder, so not just batting. My bowling was also good. I took a lot of wickets, scored a lot of runs, opening the batting, and I was like, "Yeah, abhi to mil hi jayega," because I got selected for much less. I did not get selected because obviously they know me already. Like they have seen me for 8 months, so that really broke me. And I did not have the mentality to play professional cricket. Making it in professional sports is all about the mind. Everybody has skill. Once you reach a certain level, skill is not the differentiating factor. And obviously all sports people talk about this a lot, but I really feel it, and I was one of those who just did not have a strong enough mentality to carry on. Like I used to never come home and shadow practice. That's like one of the things that everybody has to do. Like it's just your basics are being strengthened. I used to never do that because I used to just play cricket. I'm playing cricket. I used to play cricket like that. Yeah, I'm playing cricket. What else do I need? So I used to just enjoy myself and not apply myself in cricket.
Wow, that is so interesting. Because a lot of people just think that sports is like you see Usain Bolt, you're like, okay, it's all about running, but you
Yeah.
don't realize what's happening here. Oh wow. But Anirban, I know you stopped playing cricket, but I again for a fact know that you've never stopped following cricket. I mean, India mein everyone follows cricket and everyone has played cricket, whether it's mohalla cricket or like international cricket. Everyone has played cricket. But I know you follow every cricket match everywhere, and I also know that you were in Eden Gardens when that 1996 World Cup semi-final happened, which Biswa talked about in the last episode. I just want to talk to you about like your cricket journey, not as a cricketer, but as a cricket fan, because I know you were there. You were also in some way associated with the 2001 iconic Eden Gardens match. And watching, I am so jealous of you, Nirban, when you say that you've actually watched cricket in Eden Gardens. So, how is your journey as a cricket fan been? Like,
My father got me into cricket. Like he's an absolute sports freak. And when I was watching the Rahul episode, I actually messaged him after that episode that you and I have the same dad. Okay, like we have the same exact dad. Like we have, like our dad sent us the same messages. So it was like that only. My dad got me into cricket because he used to play cricket when he was in college, when he was in school, and he got me into sports in general. But obviously, cricket took over because Sachin Tendulkar was just too much, too big compared to a Dhanraj Pillai or a Baichung Bhutia or a Leander Pace. So, and also in those days, our interaction with sports was limited to what sports is on TV.
hmm,
And it was always cricket. Like we didn't have these sports channels. It used to be like Doordarshan mein aa raha hai shayad, ya like just Star Sports, ESPN ka early few days. So there was so much cricket that I used to consume that it just became second nature. It just something that I look forward to. I used to watch Kenya versus Bangladesh ka bhi match while dad used to be like ki आज लिवरपूल और मैन यूनाइटेड का मैच है, प्लीज मेरे को वो देखने दो, बिकॉज उस टाइम पे एक ही मैच दिखाते थे प्रीमियर लीग में, ठीक है, लिवरपूल यूनाइटेड का मैच सिलेक्ट हुआ था दिखाने के लिए, बट सेम टाइम पे केन्या बांग्लादेश का मैच होता, हम लाइक नो no no cricket देखना है. So I was that kind of a cricket fan, mostly through TV. And Eden Gardens had a big role in it, because 94 से लेके 2006 तक every international match that has happened at Eden Gardens, I have been there. Like every year there used to be one, like Eden Gardens used to be allotted one match per year, and अगर वो match like you know winter में like end of the year भी है ना, तो starting से like we used to know, तो पूरा like 6-7 महीना I used to just wait किया like Eden Gardens में जाके मैच देखा, then only the year will be complete. Now I haven't gone to Eden Gardens for like I think 15 years, but couldn't like this was unthinkable कि 15 साल में Eden Garden नहीं गया, because हर साल जाना है, like almost like a pilgrimage. That had a big impact, and I just like you know just those idols in that era, no, like Sachin Tendulkar, Ganguly, Dravid, Lakshman. It's a privilege to be just like sitting in front of a TV and watching them. So they ruled, they just ruled. And I honestly like the current Indian team, and like you know Dhoni wala team also, like I've followed, but it doesn't give me that feeling. You know, I was a kid also, I fell in love with the game at that point, and they did so much for us.
Yeah, we are definitely growing old, Anirban.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I started watching Tendulkar, and every elder in my family used to be like, Kapil Dev, ये सब तो बच्चे हैं. And he used to be like, come on. And I'm sure the way we are reacting to Virat Kohli is the same. Like, ठीक है, but Sachin. Now that we are talking about cricket, Anirban, I can't help but talk about sports quizzing. Okay, and you are a very avid quizzer. I know that, and you're amongst 4 people who have actually won Quizzing with the Comedians. Okay, and there are conspiracy theories that you made me conduct a cricket and football edition so that you could win. But that aside, I think like you're an insane sports quizzer. Like I consider myself a pretty decent sports quizzer myself, and I also know you and I are from the same era of sports quizzing, so we know the same trivia. We know the matches, we know the important fun facts, etc. And you're not just sports quizzing, you've been quizzing quite regularly throughout your life. So I want to now talk to you about your quizzing journey, Anirban, in general, and sports quizzing in particular. From Calcutta to now, to winning a cricket and football edition of Quizzing with the Comedians.
In my school, there was a strong quizzing culture. There was a quiz club. So when we entered class 6, you know, we were asked to choose a club. And there was a quiz club, there was a theater club, there was a dance club. I think there was something to do with sports also, but I chose quiz. And after school, on one designated day of the week, you know, these clubs will basically take place. So, you know, even after school has ended, you stay back for an hour. And that's how I started quizzing, mostly with my seniors. You know, I was in class 6, so I used to quiz with like people in class 8, class 10. And then I started, you know, getting selected for the school team to, you know, participate in like Maggie quiz and She Leathers quiz. Those were the quiz. Like Science City auditorium में elimination round होता था, तो उधर जाके हर बार out होके आ जाता था, कभी वो stage तक पहुंचा ही नहीं. And but sports quiz was one where I made it to the finals, like to the you know stage rounds. With my best friend Harsh, so we used to like discuss sports trivia whenever we met. Like you know, no WhatsApp, no like phone पे भी उतना बात नहीं होता था. जब भी मिलते थे, कोई ना कोई trivia वो लेके आता था, नहीं तो कोई ना कोई trivia मैं लेके आता था, and we used to discuss. And then after ESPN School Quiz took off, you know, on TV. I think after the first season or something, they had a book, a white color book. I remember. Yeah. Do you have it?
Yeah, I have it. I showed it to. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So that ESPN book. वो मैं खत्म कर दिया था. Like you know, I knew a lot of answers, and the answers that I didn't know, I mugged it up. And the reason I'm so fascinated with sports quizzes, you know, I've spent most of my life consuming sports, and my dad has done that since the 60s. So his life is also like that. His first love is sports. Just threw in so much trivia to me. like, all those old stories, like, the Hanif Mohammed, and these are the names that I've just like grown up listening. I probably don't even remember all the stories, but I just remember the names like Salim Durrani and Eknath Solkar and like, Dilip Doshi. This is itna, like, and this is just cricket. Like football, mein he used to talk about like the great footballing teams like in the 50s. Hockey ka baat karte the, tennis ka baat karte the, Ramanathan Krishnan, Ramesh Krishnan. So just grown up in this house that just talks sports, and that's why I feel that I am good in sports quiz. And I honestly, like, whenever I'm playing a general quiz, I'm just waiting for the sports question. Okay, like even if I come last in the general quiz, but if there's one sports question and I've gotten it right, I won. And on the contrary, if I'm coming first and then I miss a sports question, I really feel bad. Growing up in Calcutta is a big, but Calcutta also had that circuit, Neil O'Brien, Barry O'Brien, Derek O'Brien. So Derek O'Brien and Barry O'Brien used to come to our schools to conduct quizzes. Then Parno Mukherjee used to come to our schools to conduct quizzes, and we have taken part in all those quizzes. And if you are not playing, we were in the audience, kind of playing with the people who are playing. So that competitive spirit was there in my school, and that's why I love quizzing so much.
Oh man, so true and so relatable. Because obviously Calcutta was the quizzing capital of the country for a very long time, especially in the 70s and 80s. And I used to be very fascinated by all these Calcutta schools in ESPN School Quiz and like Bonvita Quiz Contest. And one thing that you said, two things that you said, I really want to touch upon. One is you sometimes just know random things. For example, it reminded me of your Hanif Mohammed answer in Cricket and Football Edition, where there was a question about legendary batsmen, etc., etc. I think Pakistan was also given in the question, and you just came up with that answer, Hanif Mohammed. And you and I were so scared that people might think you've Googled. You know what I mean? Because there are some names we just know. Because since we've quizzed all our life, names like Jack Hobbs, Wally Hammond, Hanif Mohammed, Subhash Gupte, Everton Weeks, these are just there. Frank Underwood, we just know these names. Douglas Jardine, we know.
Yes.
Like, we know. And the third and my favorite thing that you said, which I really want to talk more about, and you've given me a chance to talk about it, is that even within quizzing, there are two types of quizzers, I feel. One is a quizzer who knows like just random trivia and facts. Okay. One is something that you've done all your life. So you naturally know about it. For example, you've consumed sports all your life. So you're not looking at necessarily like if I ask you what happened in Liverpool Everton 98 99, you might not know. Okay. But if I talk about a certain player from that era who did so with the right amount of cues, you will know this. For example, I feel I've seen so many movies all my life, or I'm interested in Indian politics so much that I might not know like MP from this place in 1993. But since I've consumed that content all my life, I'll be able to figure कि question में क्या है, ये क्या पूछना चाह रहा है, which is so important.
Just want to say that I've quizzed all my life, but quizzing with you is a different experience. It's really a like defining part of my life right now, especially in the lockdown, when like even before the quizzing tournaments, there used to be daily quizzes, and also like quizzing in the group in the WhatsApp. I never like thought quizzing would be this sustainable, because quizzing used to be always top start. It was never like the primary focus, like har mahine ek quiz hota hoga, like school mein. Yeah, then we had this group with Weber and my Kolkata school friends, that also we used to like have seasons, like ek mahine mein we'll do 5 quizzes, and then next year tak kuch nahi. But just quizzing with you, and like quizzing with Rohan, Ashish, everybody in that group, Biswa, like it's so much fun. I feel very lucky that quizzing is still part of my life, because it kind of stopped being part of my life after school. Like college mein I never quizzed, office jab chal raha tha tab bhi nahi hua tha. And the way you frame questions, like believe me, after every quiz that I play with my Calcutta group, I just tell them, can you please listen and watch KV's quiz show just to see how he frames question. Okay, like that is such a big part of a good quiz that sometimes, we like people who are making quiz for the first time obviously won't get it. So I am on their like, back all the time. Okay, here's one link. हमेशा कोई ना कोई, quizzing episode premiere होने वाला होता है या just हुआ होता है जब भी हम लोग खेलते हैं. And I send it to them. And, they also learn a lot from that show. Not just about GK and all, but how to make a quiz, how to have fun in a quiz.
Thanks, Anirban. And you know how now this is becoming a mutual admiration part of this thing. But most of my Excel sheets of participants in a quiz invariably starts with Anirban. And even the next edition, which we are taping in August, I think the very first quarterfinal has Anirban. But we'll see. Cool. We're talking about quizzing Anirban. I remember you had once asked a beautiful Princess Diana question, and we had a conversation about the question and about the tunnel where she unfortunately died, etc. And and then we started talking, and then you said that there is some sort of an obsession that you have with Princess Diana and conspiracy theory in general. So why not talk about that? What is your obsession with Princess Diana?
Princess Diana, for some reason, was big in Calcutta. Okay, she came to Calcutta, met Mother Teresa, I think, in the early '90s, and that picture used to be on all magazines and like newspapers. And Diana was basically covered a lot in Kolkata newspapers, her activities abroad, social work, like fights with the royal family. So I just kind of tracked Diana for a few years, but then she died. Okay, so I didn't really know Diana, but then when she died, I watched that funeral, okay, on TV, like how I would watch a match, just ball by ball. I literally watched that entire journey to Westminster Abbey and Elton John singing Candle in the Wind. There is no way to, explain this, but I was really moved. I cried. That Candle in the Wind song, just became ki, okay, I told my dad I need the song. एंड उस टाइम पे कहाँ से मिलेगा सॉन्ग, इंटरनेट नहीं है, कैंडल ऑब्सक्योर इंडियन कोई टी सीरीज का तो नहीं है ना, तो हम लोग गरियाट जाके, आई रिमेम्बर मी एंड डैड फॉर लाइक 3-4 days we used to go to Gariyat every day just to look for different cassette shops कि ये गाना मिल जाए. So that was the kind of impact her funeral had. And then I learned about her when the internet came, that was one of the first things I actually kind of became obsessed about Diana's story. And I just feel that it's one of the most fascinating stories in modern history. Diana is considered to be the person jiske wajah se modern media kind of took off, like paparazzi, tabloids, and that has like kind of flown into social media, Instagram. And Diana was like that one lady who literally like built that industry, and that killed her. And I really feel that we don't talk about Diana often because the things that she has done, like her story within the royal family is quite unheard of. And what Prince Harry and Meghan and all these guys are like doing now is some Diana legacy. She was one of my first heroes. Like I was in love with Princess Diana, as a 9-year-old in 1997.
In fact, yeah, I remember Princess Diana met an AIDS patient, like AIDS
yeah.
patient, and that played such an instrumental role in like making people believe that hey, it's okay to touch an AIDS patient, because her photo with an AIDS afflicted patient, she was shaking the hand or basically touching him. And then that had such a major impact where people were like, oh, okay, ye chune se nahi phailta hai, So imagine like no amount of work that WHO or any medical bodies could achieve what just one photo of Princess Diana with an AIDS patient achieved back in the 80s.
She's like kind of the first influencer without the internet. Like she does, Princess Diana doesn't require internet to be an influencer. Like she's that kind of a person. And just thinking about, I've watched a lot of documentaries on her and watched a lot of YouTube videos on her. And I just wonder, right now with this internet, overload that we are facing, and it has like given rise to so much anxiety and so many disorders. Just imagining for about 15 years, this entire, like normally what happens, internet is overloaded for all. Like everybody, is facing the brunt. But at that point in the 80s and the 90s, Princess Diana was the lone, target. Like people used to fly from the United States just to, get a photo of Diana outside London airport. So that kind of, coverage for a human being is probably unheard of. And she's contributed a lot. And I hope there's a movie made on her and people talk about her more often, because we really want to see more of the Diana story.
Yeah, man, you're right, because this is the era where we didn't have like mobile cameras. So when she's like after the Charles split, when she used to travel to all these beaches with rumored boyfriends, there would be journalists, like professional journalists from all over the world with their professional cameras trying to get one photo of Diana on some beach with some guy. Oh man. But anyway, back to where you started the story, Anirban, and you said that Diana sort of came into your life because of her Calcutta visit and because of her meeting Mother Teresa herself, and which made me think that while you were growing up, there was Mother Teresa in Calcutta. There was this young upcoming cricketer called Saurav Ganguly. There is of course the immense cultural legacy of Tagore and so many other literary figures and figures from art. While you were growing up, Amartya Sen won the Nobel Prize. Okay, another guy from that part of the world. There is of course the lingering a legacy of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So I can't help but talk to you about some of these Calcutta icons, and did they play any role in your life, or did they affect your life?
I was very lucky to actually get to meet Mother Teresa on several occasions. Like, I used to kind of meet her weekly. My mom was close to Mother Teresa. She used to help her social work. She used to donate a lot of stuff. My mom was a teacher in Kolkata, and Mother Teresa has like handwritten letters to my mom. Okay, so they had a friendship going on, and my mom used to take me to Missionaries of Charities every Sunday. Whatever clothes that I had, that I can outdo, I used to go and give it at Missionaries of Charity every Sunday. But I don't really have distinct memories. I remember Mother Teresa. I was very small, so I remember seeing her. I remember her holding me and all, but I don't really remember what was spoken about, and वो सब याद नहीं है. Just I remember that part of Calcutta, जहाँ पे मतलब you knew कि if you enter here, Mother Teresa will appear on the other side. I just knew that. So it did not have a lasting impact because I don't remember much. It was like when I was very small. But Netaji is definitely a much bigger influence. Because again, I was very lucky to live in the same neighborhood as Netaji's house, and it's a museum now. And oh man, I can't tell you the amount of times I have gone to that museum. On 23rd January every year, I used to definitely go because there used to be a function. People used to come. One time, Netaji's daughter came from Germany to attend and all. So 23rd January को तो मैं जाता ही था, but other weekends also I used to go. My mom used to just take me. His mom is also like hugely influenced by Netaji. So she used to just take me, and each and every corner of Netaji's house, like I know very well, like from where he escaped from, like his bedroom, नीचे क्या होता, गाड़ी जहाँ से वो escape किया था, that great escape, वो नीचे parked रहता था. So for few of the first books that I have read in my life are on Netaji. So yeah, like I do this in my set that you shouldn't have a favorite freedom fighter, but he's mine. So that's just because of the connection I had due to living in Calcutta. Yeah, like I really think that Netaji's freedom struggle story is so unique. Like obviously we have like unparalleled freedom fighters, but Netaji like story would be like too much for a web series. Like किधर जा रहा है ये क्या story? Like if you pitch Netaji's story without knowing Netaji's story, like somebody from an OTT would be like no too ambitious. नहीं submarine में jump नहीं what like इधर से आके flag hoist नहीं ये सब हो ही नहीं सकता. So yeah, like he gets a lot of like criticism for meeting Hitler, but I'm like at that point he's trying to get a country independent. Like I think he's allowed to do all of that. So just a superhero for me.
Yeah, so true. Very unique, no doubt. Like we can never compare freedom fighters, like you said. We can never compare a Nehru versus Patel versus Bose. But in terms of journey, there is no parallel. Like imagine a proper some guy who cracks the Indian civil service exam just to prove that he can crack it. That for me is the benchmark. I don't say this in public, but there are some things in life I do just to prove that I can do this, and then I don't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like क्या करना है, stand up करके अच्छे से करके ये कर सकता हूँ, मेरा choice है, मैं नहीं. I feel that so many times. And Netaji is my benchmark there. He's like, you think I'm not taking ICS because I can't do? Okay, wait, give me a chance. Crack, like I can become an ICS officer, not becoming. I want to do something else. And then this entire founding his own army. Then
oh my god.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I can imagine growing up in Calcutta, the legacy of Mother Teresa and Netaji. But also, we did talk about Ganguly a bit, but I want to further explore that, Anirban, because you love cricket, we love cricket, and in the world of cricket, over the last 2 decades, okay, a little more than 2 decades, the kind of impact Saurav Ganguly has had on Indian cricket is also unparalleled to some sense, and he's now also contributing as an administrator. But I can imagine you growing up in Calcutta, and Ganguly is also a wonderful story. He makes debut for India in 1992, then is fired from the team, does not come back for 4 years, and then he makes a Lord's debut. And there are so many interesting stories from his cricket life. I was reading recently about how he had so much attitude as a teenager cricketer, because apparently, and all this is obviously hearsay, he was asked to go and he was asked to take water to the ground, like as a 12th man or whatever, and he said, "Man, nahi karne wala." Like this, I can't do. So it's not that, like, when he made Steve Waugh wait for the toss,
Yeah,
it's not that he grew an attitude like overnight. He was
yeah.
always this guy. But I'm more curious from your perspective as someone who's playing cricket in Eden Garden, someone who's growing up in Calcutta. How did Ganguly impact your life?
And Ganguly is my favorite cricketer. Sachin Tendulkar, obviously, you can't say anything that, Sachin is kind of everybody's favorite cricketer, but I have a more personal connect with Saurav Ganguly. And I feel that it's not just, he's from Calcutta and Wasap, so obviously there is a factor. But, from 1998 to 2003, those 5 years, I recently found out Ganguly scored 22 ODI hundreds, and all the 2200s were scored in that 5 year period. Nothing before that, nothing after that. And at that point, like when he and Sachin started opening, India was unstoppable. Like the amount of 100 partnerships they had, and also I think those, at least for that 5 year period, apart from his contribution as a captain, he was also like the world's best batsman in ODI, in limited overs cricket. And I just like his story because his story also has not just one comeback. His story has just a series of comebacks. The one after Greg Chappell was, I didn't think he'll make it. I really didn't think he'll make it because he was aging. But it's somebody like a Saurav Ganguly is just made for moments like these. And I remember when he was out of the team for 6 months. I think I was in Pune that time. I was in college, and my friend who used to live in Behala, very close to where Ganguly stays, he used to tell me that मेरे घर के पीछे एक ground है और सुबह 5 बजे, even before like the sun is out, Ganguly is running. Like he's out of the team, he's trying to get back. This like he's in the news every day. Greg Chappell और ये सब झगड़ा चल रहा है, राहुल द्रविड़ के साथ थोड़ा सीन चल रहा है. But वो सुबह 5 बजे जाके भाग रहे हैं because अगर सौरव गांगुली सोच ले कि he's gonna make a comeback, then he will make a comeback. So that attitude has obviously transferred to the Indian cricket team after he became captain, because before that and after that it's two completely different eras.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and his contribution as captain to and especially kind of forget that match fixing ke baad he took over. He was not very old, like he was just like 4 years into international cricket, like obviously 92 se 96 to domestic hi khel raha tha. And just like he didn't really care about what others think. He was in controversy after controversy, but he did the job. Like he did the like I think 92 mein he was dropped after playing one match, I think one or two matches, and then when he became captain and when he started giving opportunities to a Sehwag and a Yuvraj and a Zahir Khan, like one of the defining factors of his captaincy was ki I'm not going to drop you after one or two matches. Like I know what that can do to a person, that can totally shatter your confidence. So I feel like him getting dropped in 92 and Ravi Shastri has a role in the resurrection of Indian cricket. Do you remember that ad, that Pepsi ad? Ki Dada ko bhool to nahi gaye the. Oh man, I cried after watching that ad. Like wow. So he was a complete package for me.
If you write the history of Indian cricket, in terms of our success, there is pre 1983 and post 1983. These are two different stories.
Yes.
But in terms of our attitude as a team, it has to be pre Ganguly and post Ganguly Indian team. They're two completely different beasts. But one common theme, Anirban, while you were talking, I was thinking of all these figures that we say. These are all very divisive figures in some sense. And let me explain what I mean. Okay, there is Ganguly who has a legacy, and over the past few years, people are talking about his political leanings and his non-cricket opinions, etc., and attitude. You talked about Netaji, who remains a controversial figure for so many reasons. Mother Teresa, despite everything, remains a divisive figure. There's a section which does not consider her a saint, and they say that missionary of charity was something else. And I'm not going into details, but we know what you're talking about. We talked about Amartya Sen, again, is someone who someone would say is a great economist, and someone else would say, oh man, no, I think he was just glorifying poverty. So there's no end to this. Which brings me to my next topic, because I know you're really interested in this, which is the politics of Bengal. Okay. And as a student of politics myself, especially Indian politics, I feel Bengal, of course, is a hotbed of political thoughts, political movements, etc. There was the Congress government in BC, led by BC Roy initially, and then the Naxalite movement happened. The communists came into power, and it's been a topsy turvy ride since 1947. And then you had this entire Jyoti Basu era, and then Buddhadev era, and then now Mamta Banerjee era. We don't talk enough about politics. I feel like when I say we, I mean you and I, or stand-up comedians, or anyone in public figures, for several reasons. Okay, I personally don't do, because I feel I will start talking about politics because I strongly feel about politics, but I will do it the day I realize my audience will treat it as my opinion. That's it. The day I gain the confidence that anyone who is listening to this conversation thinks that, okay, this is his opinion and he's right or wrong. That's it. Just like we respect everyone's opinion, but I think we have a way to go there. So, but I'm really curious, because we talk about politics offline a lot, Anirban. And again, you've lived in Bengal. I have not. My understanding of Bengal politics is very academic in nature, while your understanding of Bengal politics is you've lived through it. So, how do you see Bengal's politics, and your sort of you as a Bengali growing up in Bengal? How has it evolved? Anything that you want to talk about? Because this is a topic that has to be talked more. So let's see. This might be a start.
I never had the option of not getting interested in politics, not getting invested in politics, because both mom and dad, they used to always talk about politics at home. And, I'll tell you a story. This was way before I was born, that when the Naxal movement was going on, in my family, there was somebody, like in extended family, there was somebody who was, a Naxal. Okay. And in those days, they used to target rich people. They used to target rich people, and they try to take their money, or kill them. And in one of his targets was another member of my family. Okay, extended family. So here's a Naxal movement that's going on in my house, 20 years, 30 years before I was born. So that is the kind of, family I was born into, and politics was always, a topic of discussion. Like nobody really shied away from politics at any point. Like us time pe, obviously I grew up in the era of Jyoti Basu, but we were interested in national politics. Actually, the 90s was a very tumultuous, time for politics. Lok Sabha elections used to happen every year, every 2 years. So probably in a decade where election is just happening twice, maybe I wouldn't get so interested. But over there, every year something is happening. The rise of Vajpayee and everybody else, coalition politics, it happened. And so one thing that I always used to do was watch the news in the evening. And at that point, because you had just half an hour to tell the news, obviously you will just talk about the prime minister kya kar raha hai, president kya kar raha hai, all the major things. Like abhi ka news kaise, itna cluttered hai, kuch bhi news ban jata hai. Us time pe news banne ka ek filter hota tha, and obviously politics was a was the priority for that half an hour. And I used to read the newspapers and Telegraph. Telegraph, even today, I'm so happy to say, even today, they talk about politics so freely. And that was exactly what the scene was in the 90s, in the early 2000s. So, I just grew up around a lot of politics. And I really feel that Bengal politics is different from Indian politics in one way, which is religion is not a factor. Religion is absolutely not a factor there. CPM ruled for 33 years. And, I'm sure they had a role in this, because atheists and communists, despite having Durga Puja as the main event of the year, religion never entered into our lives in any way in how we see nowadays. So I think that's a differentiating factor of Bengal politics from national politics. Durga Puja, when I was a kid, Durga Puja was a food festival more than a religious festival. Okay, like Kolkata Book Fair was like, used to go there for the food. So it was like that kind of a city, like, Zada kuch, like religion and all, yes, like nobody really cared. And I was reading an article in the Telegraph, I think last month after the Bengal election results came out. And over there, like, there was a very nice point that when TMC beat BJP in this elections, it was kind of, uh, a language beating a religion, a language based community beating a religion based, like, force. And it's not the first time it has happened. As the article said, that in 1971, when Bangladesh was formed, that was also a language based community beating a religion, Islam in that case, Hindutva in this case. So that makes me very happy that, even after like 50 years, exactly actually 50 years have passed from 71 to 2021, and that remains. Like, till how much it remains is anybody's guess, because before the elections I was really worried. But yeah, I feel that that is a good thing about Bengal politics, that religion is yet not a big factor.
While you were saying this last point, it made me think about how 1947 was the opposite in some sense, because then
Yeah.
religion beat language. Whatever I've studied of Bengal, a lot of Bengalis feel very guilty about 1947,
Yeah.
because they feel that, this big Bengal, like the greater Bengal of like current modern
Yeah.
state of West Bengal and
Yeah.
Bangladesh is one region called Bengal, right? And they feel very guilty that because of religion, we were divided. And of course, partition of Bengal is a different topic altogether. It's very unfortunate from a Bengali perspective about how Dhaka went there and Calcutta been here. I remember studying things like all the jute mills were here, but all the jute production went there,
Yeah.
etc., 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 and the other way around. Wow. Okay. While we are talking about politics and Calcutta, Anirban, I want to now take you outside Calcutta for a while. Okay, because we talked about a guy. Now when I'm looking at you, I see this kid growing up in Calcutta, playing cricket, meeting Mother Teresa, listening about Naxalite and listening about current politics. When I say current, I mean Jyoti Basu of the 90s, watching elections in 96, 98, 99. Life is very different. You're going out, you're quizzing, you're playing cricket, your lot of things are happening. And then you end up in a field sales job. Like, if till this point I'm like, this guy will either become a cricketer. Okay, no, he did not become a cricketer. Okay, maybe he'll become a writer, a politician, some intellectual, some artist. Then you end up in a field sales job, which I've heard so many stories from you. How did that happen, and how was that, like, what was that job all about? Let's see how this Calcutta kid ended up in the lanes of Kodarma and, like, I don't know, Jumri Talaya, trying to sell industrial equipments to people. I want to talk about that phase of your life now.
So I got placed from college, and I did not have a choice in what division I will be sent to in that company. So a lot of my friends actually got engineering jobs, like they were like posted in the plant, and somebody was in supply chain logistics. But like I was sent to field sales in Kolkata, not so like the headquarters was in Bombay. So I actually joined the office in Bombay, and I was like very happy कि Bombay में finally रहने को मिल रहा है, and accommodation भी दे रहा है, and yeah. So I was very happy. But then right after the induction, they were like, you go to Calcutta branch. So all my other friends actually stayed back in Bombay, in Vikhroli, where I lived in the same lane till about a year back. In that same lane, like in 2010, I used to live in the quarters, and now while in the last few years I used to live in the complex just after that. And I was like not very pleased to go back to Calcutta, because I've just come out of there. So I was like, I want to spend some time in Bombay. I'm fascinated by Bombay also, because like all the movies are in Bombay, like cricket, everything. Like Bombay also has, like, it's such a great place, and I wanted to experience it, but they sent me to Calcutta. So I thought, okay, I went there without expecting anything. I had no idea about field sales. Okay, that hardcore job, like needs to come with a warning. Okay, I just went there, I reported to work, and like they just attached me to a senior of mine, and said that he's going on tour to Bhubaneswar. Train leaves in 3 hours. Go. So I was like, what? So like my dad and mom had no idea that I'd be like touring and all. So I think field sales is like the lowest level of a corporate job. There's nothing fancy about it. You probably don't even get conveyance back. Like you spend on it, and they're like, "ये नहीं तू क्यों गया बिहार से झारखंड?" I'm like, यार मेरा boss बोला था यार. बोलते नहीं पहले permission नहीं लिया तो नहीं मिलेगा train का भाड़ा. So it's like it's madness. And everybody who's done field sales, I feel, will concur that it toughens you up. Like you are not ready for that kind of a job, especially with the kind of privileged background I come from. That was a world I never thought I'll see remotely. How is this job fun if every Sunday night I have to leave? So my weekend is also not complete. Like I get one day of the week off, which was Sunday, and वो भी like 7 बजे I have to leave. रात को 10 बजे हावड़ा स्टेशन से ट्रेन है पटना या भुवनेश्वर या बाढ़ या कोडरमा. अगर रांची जाना है तो I would get the luxury to go in the Shatabdi next morning. और अगर धनबाद जाना बट जो शताब्दी लाइन में नहीं है leave the previous night. And a lot of sales is just about irritating the customer to buy your product. Like you have to basically get money out from them, and they don't want to spend money on racking and storage system, because that's not the priority of like companies. Like company ka priority is obviously is production, and all storage is obviously like ignored, especially in the east. And I used to do that job where I used to basically design storage systems in warehouses. Normally in warehouses people would just like throw stuff, whereas I used to like design the system, use the height and all of that. But that's not really a priority for a purchase manager, or somebody. They have to buy raw materials, they have to do other things, they have to figure out transportation so the material reaches. So my job never used to get over in one day. So if I have a meeting at say NTPC Bar on a Monday, I'll go on a Monday, I'll pitch my thing. I've probably already come there. This is my fourth meeting. I'll show them the drawings that I've done and everything. And then they will be like, no. So then I'll call my boss, and my boss would be like, no, you have to close it and then only come back. So I'm like, okay, I'll stay back for Tuesday also. I don't know whether I'll come back on a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday. This used to happen when I used to go collect payments also. Outstanding payments. You just don't know whether the payment will be out in a day or in a week. So many times, many weeks happened such that, I left Sunday evening and I came back Saturday morning just to attend the review meeting of Saturday. And then I would be out again on a Sunday. So that was the life for 4 years, and I did not enjoy it while I was working, but there was some part of it that I liked, which was meeting targets. Like that used to be a huge high. Like I was fortunate enough to like meet targets I think twice in the 4 years, and I used to just chase that feeling. Okay, if you close a big deal and if you meet your target, that's a great feeling. It's like sports only in a way, that whether you win or lose, but in field sales you're losing only most of the times, but that win is a big high. Yeah. And that was my life for 4 years.
Wow. And then the proverbial return of the sun happens, because then you come to Calcutta and comedy happens. And that's why I kept it as our last topic, because I'm really interested about knowing this part of yours. Because when you look at Indian comedy, obviously Mumbai and Delhi and say Bangalore and Chennai in regional comedy, so to speak. But these three in terms of Hindi/English comedy, Bangalore, Mumbai and Delhi are the three like centers of comedy. But then there is a parallel, some sort of a brewing of a small movement happening in Calcutta. And I'm just, as a historian, I'm trying to analyze Indian comedy, where there are the likes of Saurav Ghosh and Vaibhav Sethia and Anirban Dasgupta, who are, sort of like the flag bearers of Calcutta comedy. So I want you to go back to those times as to what do you think how were those days, first of all? Secondly, how is Calcutta comedy different from because every city has its own flavor. So obviously comedy will also reflect the flavor of the city. So how was that, and how did it all begin? And then eventually the first batch of you, Saurav and Vaibhav, came here, followed by Saurav Mehta and everyone else. But I'm very curious to know about that portion of your life. How did that happen, and what happened, and how was it, and everything?
So I first saw a comedy show while I was in Bombay for my job at the Comedy Store that later became Canvas Laugh Club, and I was just like blown away. So much that I used to watch the same show every day. So, initially I didn't know that when you had a weekend, Thursday to Sunday, with the same lineup, it's the same show. So just pick a date. At that point, I was like, I'll go every day. Okay. And it was expensive with 750 ka tickets tha. And I was on my first salary, but I used to spend all on Comedy Store. But as an audience, I never thought that I'm going to do it. But that was the first connect with the Indian scene. Although at that point, only foreign comics used to perform. And a Tanmay would do an open spot, and Ashish Shakya would do an open spot, and Aditi Mittal would do an open spot, and you could see Karan Talwar in the door. That kind of a scene in 2010. And then I went back to Calcutta. I started my job, and I was like pretty consumed by my job, and I didn't know anybody, Vaibhav, Saurav, everybody met later, and then suddenly I used to follow these guys on Twitter, Khamba, Tanmay, all the stand-up comics of the early days, and I was really excited about what they are going to do next. What are, I was a proper fan. I still am, and that has remained, and. But I never thought that comedy will happen. Then suddenly there was an open mic in Kolkata, and my first open mic was in a 600 seater with just 20 people in the audience, which is already a different start to a comedy career. Okay, nobody else has this start where your first open, normally where the first open mic will be at a bar, at a restaurant, in one small comedy club with 20 people in the audience. The producer over here booked a GD Birla Savagar near below Birla Mandir. And over there, he has announced a 1 lakh prize for whoever wins the open mic. You will know this, right? To earn 1 lakh in comedy takes 2-3 years. Okay, over here, we had the chance to make 1 lakh in the first night. Okay, and there was advertisements in Telegraph, he come for this open mic, and it was really marketed. And just 20 people showed up in the audience, and 3 performers showed up. Okay, 3 performers showed up. One was me, one was Vaibhav Sethia. That's the first time I met Vaibhav. And the third was another guy, and he won the 1 lakh.
Oh, shit.
He won the 1 lakh, and it took me and Vaibhav about 3 years to catch up with him. But that was the first time I went on stage. I met Vaibhav, and we had a great time. Saurav Ghosh I met in the next show 1 month later, and very quickly we became friends. We realized that there were obviously about 7-8 people trying to figure this out, but me, Vaibhav, and Saurav were very close. We kind of found each other early on, and we decided it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. At that time, Calcutta scene was so bad in a way that we used to get one opportunity on stage entire month. So one Veer Das will come or Papa CJ will come, and you will get to open. That's it. But that's not a scene, right? There is no open mics. There's nothing. It's just okay, whenever somebody from outside comes, you just do 5 minutes. And so we kind of decided to branch out. We had our own company. We used to call Comedy Fight. And we used to run it, and we used to have open mics. And we reached this, it was just, we were not aiming for anything in particular. We just wanted to keep getting to do this. We realized that is upon us only. If we create enough opportunities, we were not thinking about building the scene. We were thinking कि अच्छा next month भी मेरे को करना है show. वैभव को next month भी show करना है, घोष को भी show करना है. Job वॉब छोड़ने का भी सोच नहीं रहा था. वैभव तो job छोड़ के start किया था. वैभव has the weirdest story. वो Schlumberger का job छोड़ के Calcutta में comedy scene try कर रहा है. Unheard of. Okay? Not even Bombay, Delhi. So we were did not have anything in mind particular except, okay, let's close the next gig, let's crack another deal. And we just kept doing it for 2-3 years. We used to we reached a stage in Calcutta where we used to have 8 to 10 shows a week. So from once a month to we created that stage time for ourselves, and that helped our development also. And then we moved to Bombay because after a while it's difficult to grow in Calcutta because we are the scene only. We are on all the shows. So if there are 100 shows in Calcutta, this lineup is the same. Okay, the only difference is कभी वैभव पहले जा रहा है, कभी मैं पहले जा रहा हूँ, कभी घोष close कर रहा है, और कुछ change नहीं है. So that's why we moved here. And the Calcutta scene is very original according to me. Every comic is even if you see Ghosh, me and Vaibhav, 3 guys who kind of came out of Calcutta, Saurav Mehta, we are very different from each other, even though we are just watching each other all the time. still like that similarity that you might see in two Delhi comics or two Bombay comics is not there in Calcutta. Even the current bunch of comics that are there in Calcutta are just like, different from each other. So I feel that that is a, feature of Calcutta comedy that I remember, that it is original. It might not be good. Okay, that's not the criteria here, but they are going to do something different. Okay, we had like one-liner comics and like some crazy stories. Like I don't think I can say in public also, but we had characters. I used to actually go and do open mics. Me and Vaibhav used to do open mics in Delhi and Bombay. So we used to like travel by train and come here and do 4 minute ka spots, 5 minute ka spots. So I kind of know the open mic scene in Bombay, Delhi, and also Bangalore. Also we used to go. So I have a like fair idea of the open mic scenes in these cities, and I do feel that Calcutta has that thing on them, that Calcutta doesn't have the biggest comics and all. It doesn't have the best scene, but at least it's the most original scene according to me.
Wow. Calcutta now has retired comedy club run by Saurav Ghosh, and I'm really looking forward to like post lockdown phase when I think it's a great opportunity for Kolkata audience and Calcutta comedians. Okay, thank you, Anirban. What a wonderful conversation as expected. And we are now going to our second and last section, which is the rapid fire section, Anirban. I'm going to ask you a few questions. You don't have any time to think. You just tell us whatever comes to your mind first, and then we'll quickly go back to all the answers. Okay? Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's start rapid fire with Anirban Dasgupta. Favorite Indian comedy special?
Keep it real. Kanan Gill.
Favorite footballer of all time?
Steven Gerrard.
Favorite Indian web series of all time?
Made in Heaven.
Favorite thing about Mumbai?
Comedy clubs.
Favorite Calcutta comedian except you?
Saurav Ghosh.
Favorite cricket memory?
2001 final day of that 2001 test match.
Best stand-up comedian in India?
My favorite is Kanan Gill.
Okay, apart from Kanan Gill, since you said keep it real already.
Sumit Anand.
Sumit Anand. Favorite football match of all time? Top of your mind again.
Istanbul.
Favorite restaurant in Kolkata?
Favorite restaurant in Kolkata would be Mocambo.
One thing you don't like about Kolkata?
Not the cleanest city.
Okay, see, that's the end of a very nice, non-controversial, friendly, nice rapid fire. We'll quickly go through all your answers. Favorite Indian comedy special is Keep It Real. Do you want to add anything to this?
That special is so tight that I really admire that special. It's like Kanan as a comic is somebody I really admire, and both his specials are actually my favorite. So if you ask like name two favorite specials, the second would probably be his second. So I really enjoy watching him. And also like just the kind of comedy he does. Biswa also spoke about this. His writing is great. I love his performance. I like how he conducts himself in general around comedy.
The favorite footballer of all time, not surprised, Steven Gerrard. We did not talk about Liverpool today because I realized that once we go down that rabbit hole, I like properly like control myself. But like that's why I put it in the rapid fire to just take your quick anything that you want to say about Steven Gerrard.
And I was actually a Michael Owen fan when I first started following Liverpool. And my best friend Harsh, he was a Gerrard fan. Okay, and he's given me so much stick over the years that you chose the wrong guy. Okay, because we started following Liverpool at the same time. Both Owen and Gerrard were in the team, and we picked our favorite players. But obviously, Gerrard just took over, right? Like Owen was a very short-lived story. Gerrard was like. I think Klopp or somebody said this, right? That Liverpool has been built on Gerrard's legs, which is so true. Steven Gerrard, favorite footballer of all time. Although I would like to add that, David Beckham is somebody I absolutely love. I feel that he like, obviously such a huge celebrity that people kind of focus on that. But he was a damn good footballer. Like the passing range and like the stamina that David Beckham had in his peak was, he also used to carry teams. Like he carried the England team for many years, and even in a Manchester United team full of superstars, he was the guy who used to provide all the assists. So I. That is like, I often tell this to like Man United fans that David Beckham should have been a central midfielder. You guys did not use him properly and all that. I tell like Man U fans just for kicks.
Man, the moment you said about that Michael Owen Gerrard thing, Anirban, and the more I'm doing these episodes and the more I talk to like all of you, I realize like when people are born around the same years, okay,
Yeah.
and especially our generation, you, me, Biswa, Rahul, we are all born in different parts of the country, grew up in different parts of the country, but around like a few
Yeah.
years here and there.
Yeah.
And all of us, and this is pre-internet, okay, so
Yeah.
we are not exposed to the same trending video every day, or not the same viral meme is reaching every day, but yet our stories are all the same. you know like you, me, Rahul, are all from that generation who started loving
Yeah.
Michael Owen and
Yes.
started watching Liverpool and then became a Gerrard fan and remained a Liverpool fan all our life. In like Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta. You know what?
Yeah. Man, that's so fascinating. Oh, too good.
Okay, your favorite Indian web series? I asked because you yourself have created a wonderful web series, of course. Was Made in Heaven.
Yeah, Made in Heaven really surprised me. I enjoyed that show. The format of that show is not conventional.
Hmm.
It's episodic in a different way. Like every episode has a different marriage. And at that point, I really loved how they told that story.
Hmm.
It like I haven't like I was actually put in a spot because it's rapid fire, and that's the first thing that came to mind. Uh, but yeah, like having said that, I haven't really seen it again. Okay, there are other shows that I've like rewatched.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
beauty of rapid fire. Okay, favorite thing about Mumbai? You said comedy clubs
yeah.
because that also sort of had the biggest impact in your life. Like,
Yes, that's the only reason I moved to Bombay was because of Canvas Laugh Club. And to be honest, my only dream in stand-up was to just do a weekend in Canvas Laugh Club. And now I don't know what my next dream is, okay, because that dream has been fulfilled. That club is so special. Like Canvas Laugh Club is like one of those establishments that has that Eden Gardens feel for me personally. It's an establishment. It's like people come and a show is put up and all. It's like it's a very sacred place of sorts. Canvas Laugh Club's green room has given me a lot of security. When I had like if I'm like going through a setback or if I'm having a bad day, there have been many days where I've just gone to the green room even though I'm not on the lineup, just to just sit there and whoever is on the lineup just to talk. So it was a very special place for me. And obviously Canvas Laugh Club is shut now, but there are other clubs. That was one thing that was not there in Kolkata. Now Retired Comedy Club is there by Ghosh, but Bombay means comedy clubs to me.
wow. Favorite Calcutta comedian? I know this was a tricky question for you,
Yeah.
but you went with Saurav Ghosh. Do you want to talk about Saurav Ghosh for like?
Yeah, like obviously it's Vaibhav and Saurav, okay, and I have followed them from day one, and both these comics are very different, okay. Like we have a show, right? How weird is this guy? And it's basically on this like equation that we have that like everybody's weird. Vaibhav is weird in his own way. Saurav Ghosh is weird in his own way. Reason I picked Saurav is because I've worked with him more often. Like I've gotten the chance to like write with him. Afsos. He was the guy who wrote the final screenplay and dialogues for Afsos, and like I've gotten a chance to like discuss writing in general, not just comedy and all. And I really feel that whenever I write a joke or whenever I have an idea, Ghosh is the first guy whom I like send it to, and like his feedback is very important. I really like I get to learn a lot from Ghosh, like both in stand up and in writing. And whatever he does is like little crazy. Like one time he released a video and then he reacted on his own video. Okay, that was like I was watching Bo Burnham
Yeah.
special, yeah, and I messaged him, "Oh man, I reminded me of that video." And then when I went back and I saw that, so then like all the stuff that he does. Is yeah, it's just too good.
Yeah. Rahul and I were watching the Bo Burnham special together, and then that part came, and we were all like, "Arey!" Favorite cricket memories, again, I sort of expected this answer because it's like for all of us who like grew up watching Indian cricket, this it remains our favorite. And for you to be in Calcutta,
Yes.
what if you want to talk about the 2001 VVS Lakshman Test final day?
Man, I was there on day one and day five. Day one was Harbhajan's hat trick, and I witnessed that. Day two, day three, day four, I missed because my final exams were going on. And on the morning of day five, I first gave my exam in school, Park Street. It was not very far away from Eden Gardens, and my dad picked me up, and we reached around lunch. So didn't really think India's gonna win. Okay, like obviously we had saved the match. That much we knew. Had seen Lakshman and Dravid's innings on TV, but we were just happy with that. And then like just in the final session, the wicket started. Like I just remember this is my memory of that night. That as soon as they will appeal, the finger will go up. I just remember from the distance that finger. That memory I have. And I couldn't just believe it. Like the place was on fire that day.
Oh, man, number of times you've seen the highlight. I remember those expressions of Gilchrist, Shane Warne, middle order and lower order. They're just oh man, but what a remarkable match. Best stand-up comedian in India. You said Kanan Gill, I know, but since we already talked about Keep It Real, you picked Sumit Anand as your second favorite, so to speak. Any words on Sumit Anand?
Yeah, Sumit Anand is never afraid to take risks. I really respect that. And he takes some really random risks. Okay, like like even Manik Mana, I enjoy watching for that reason that you just never know what you're gonna get today. Sumit's video, "It's My Birthday," is probably my favorite stand-up video from the Indian scene. It's a huge bit that he's put out, and it's everything that I want my stand-up video to be. So yeah. So and I've gigged with him a lot. Like we went to MICF, and over there I saw him perform for a completely white audience. And he I think like he approaches comedy very differently from how I do it. And I would like. I watched him in Melbourne performing for a white audience, completely different. Like I was actually also on, at the festival, and I was performing for an Asian audience. So not just Indians, but there are like other Singaporeans. Sumit's show was just like, white people over there. What he was doing was, whenever Indians come to his show, he used to like ask them to fuck off. Like he's like, India ke liye comedy karne idhar kyun aaya? Because so he will like, take those risks and he'll make something out of it. It's obviously a gag in his show, but I like that about him.
Wow. Favorite football match of all time? Again, for any Liverpool fan, I mean, I don't think there can be a bigger sports memory than that night at Istanbul. But I would let you talk about it, Anirban, about that. That for those of you who don't know, we are talking about Champions League final from 2005-6, 2005. Exact. And Liverpool versus AC Milan, where Liverpool was down 3-0 after the first half. Then the miracle of Istanbul happened, and then we won Champions League. But over to you, Anirban.
Me and my dad, we were watching. My dad is also a Liverpool fan, and he's actually seen all the Champions League victories in the 80s and the late 70s. And this was a surprise for him because after so many years we reached, and then at halftime he got really, really frustrated. So my dad is a angry fan of Liverpool. Okay, maybe I'll also become that, when I'm at his age. And he is so pissed at Liverpool. He's super critical. Okay, and at 3-0, that was it. Okay, he had enough. He went back, and I kept on watching. Okay, this was obviously late in the night, like at 2 o'clock, 2:30. Next day was school, but he allowed me to watch. And then the first goal went in. I didn't celebrate, okay, and didn't shout and all because I was like, okay, it's just a consolation. Then the second goal went in, and I was like, I did not shout, but I ran. Okay, as a mute pe, like I was just like it's just, like it was mummy papa andar so rahe. When the third goal went in, I shouted. I was like, okay, like I don't have to do this. I don't have to restrict myself. I just shouted, and mom, dad both came out, and they were like, they were not angry. They were also surprised. Like dad was a surprise that it's 3-3, and then obviously like we watched the rest of the match. It's just like the amount of emotions I felt for that match, and also the season before that, because Olympiacos maybe what it all led to that match. And udhar Chelsea jeeta, Mourinho or wo Rafa Benitez was like, that contest was heating up, then we beat him in the semi-finals, then like that was a big victory as well, like 1-0 ghost goal. So final mein, like I was not expecting ki Liverpool will win, but I like the only way I thought Liverpool could win was 1-0. How we won against Chelsea, or like 0-0 we did at San Siro. So I thought ki okay. So Benitez is like that tactician, like if he can just sneak a goal, waisa kuch. But then he also went with Harry QL and like attacking lineup, and we got completely destroyed. After that, what happened? I don't think it's possible to explain. Like the mechanics of what happened just was just meant to be, I guess.
Yeah. Because on paper, if you look at both the teams, you have
Yeah.
like Crespo and like Shevchenko, and I know that team on paper is like all-time classic kind of a team versus our team, which probably Gerrard and like say to some extent Xabi Alonso
Yeah.
are like European stars. Otherwise,
Jimmy
Dudek was
Traore.
a goalkeeper. Like, oh my God. Beautiful. I love how sports fans start using words like we and us and our.
Yeah.
Okay, favorite restaurant in Kolkata. I think this was also a tough question, but you went with Mocambo.
Yeah, again, this is one of the things where I don't know what to go for.
Yeah.
Mocambo, because I discovered Mocambo very late, and since then I have always loved dining there. Chicken a la Kiev is my dish in that part of the city in Park Street. If I'm at Peter in One Step Up or Mocambo, like a la Kiev is something that I'm still looking for in Bombay. By the way, I'm not getting it in Bombay either. Kuch hai hi nahi. Ala Kiev. So that dish is my favorite. So I look for restaurants that serves that dish. Okay, Oli Pub, like all these places. Mocambo is probably not my favorite. If I have to rethink it, I'll probably say some other restaurant. There's this one restaurant called Waldorf, which was a Chinese restaurant on Park Street, and I used to go there often with my mom. My mom's favorite restaurant was Waldorf, and we had this thing where my mom is a big Chinese food fan, and she used to take me out. My dad used to be sailing, so it was like mother-son, outing. Every 2 weeks, I think, we used to go and have Chinese food in the same restaurant, Waldorf. Then Waldorf moved, and Marco Polo in China, that restaurant came up where Waldorf used to be. So now in Park Street, where Marco Polo in China is, that was where Waldorf is, and now Waldorf is in Russell Street, with opposite the ITC headquarters. So it's not the same place, but if I feel like having Chinese food, I still go there because of the history with that restaurant.
Oh man, I had a completely unrelated thought, like a quizzer, because we talked about Shevchenko, and next thing you talked about chicken a la Kiev. In my mind, I'm like, wow, from Shevchenko to Kiev. If I have to form a connect question. Okay, one thing you don't like about Kolkata was the cleanliness factor. You think this can be a much cleaner city?
Yeah, because Maidan, that space that we spoke about is so different. It's like from the rest of the city. The rest of the city is very congested. A part of Calcutta, North Calcutta, all is even where I stayed, which is like central Calcutta, is not the cleanest. Hygiene, it's not just about cleanliness. The infrastructure over there is there's something lacking still. Like I have not lived there in many years, but the lane that I used to live in was not clean. Like it was like dirty both sides. So like I used to hope that okay, cars are parked so that I don't have to see all of that. Like chalega, the gaadi rahega to, and gets waterlogged that place. The first place that gets waterlogged in Kolkata during the rains is the lane that I used to stay. So infrastructure and all of that is probably something that when I was small, it definitely was lacking. Then they made a lot of flyovers, and they took a lot of years to make all these flyovers. And when they made it, I left, so I haven't really so yeah, my memory is that okay, like the city can be better designed, better maintained.
Thank you, Anirban. Thank you for all the wonderful things you said on the show. Thank you for being a part of Random Musings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, KV.